Hey, you're listening to Soul Games, the podcast.
Where we explore new ways to enjoy the game of life with a touch more soul.
And a lot of fun.
So let's play.
Shall we? Oh, Emily, you killed that intro. It's so good. Hey, this is Brady and Tubes. I'm with my co-host, Emily Capshaw, and guest host, one of my dear friends, soul brothers, Mr. Michael Romero. What's up, my man?
Hello. Glad to be here.
Super stoked to have you with us on today's episode. And, for you guys that don't know Michael, he has been in the Soul Games world for a while. He's also been a friend of mine for probably a decade or so. And whenever I get stuck or bored and I need to get past it, I just go, hey, Michael, let's hang out. Let's grab dinner. Let's grab drinks. And let's dream up something. He's one of the most creative, impressive, sort of like genius people that I know. And in the last year or so, couple years, we have actually, bro, you were at the beginning of the meetings when we were even like naming Soul Games. Like you were there.
Yeah.
You were in the room when it was like Soul Games. Let's call it Soul Games. We didn't even know what Soul Games was. We still don't know what Soul Games it was, but like but today it's a podcast, and you helped dream up this podcast with Em and I, and we're super stoked about it. So that's why we're super stoked to have you on as a guest. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm pumped to be here. Love both of you guys and excited about what you guys are doing here. So let's go.
Well, today's episode that we have come up with is called, you know what makes me so mad? There's been so many times I've said that title. You know what makes us so mad? And people are like, what? I'm like, no, that's the title of the show. Like, you know what makes me so mad?
Everything.
And this is everything. Actually, today I was being a handyman at one of my houses. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. I guess there's not a lot that makes me that mad. And then over the course of like trying to install a TV mount and then like a door strike, I was like, oh, everything makes me mad. I was like, actually, this is really good. I'm in this energy. I'm like, and then I just started thinking, oh my God, this makes me mad. This makes me mad. This makes me mad. But like, this is a conversation around things that make us angry and hence reveals to us what really matters to us, like things we're passionate about. Whether we're going to talk about self-awareness or we're just talking about pop culture or the overall experience of life, this is a show about what makes us so mad. So what'd you guys think about when you heard the title?
I had a similar reaction of like, once I started thinking about it, I started realizing how many things I am that do irritate me. But like you said, I think it reveals what we value and it shows that we give a fuck. So it's kind of, that's the blessing in the disguise, is like, I care, and there's a vibrance and a liveliness to actually feeling strongly about something. And as a recovering codependent, people-pleasing Enneagram 9 over here, that's been a useful thing for me to actually get in touch with my anger, even in a lighthearted way, and to express my opinions about things and be controversial and not be afraid to think differently than other people and have them see that and witness that. So yeah, that's been beautiful for me.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like anger is a natural emotion for you? Do you guys feel, I don't know, if you could have a relationship with an emotion like anger, did the two of you feel like you know that emotion well and that you're friendly?
I would personally say that I have been detached from my anger most of my life, or it just came out like in like really like sports and that kind of thing. But growing up like Christian and then growing up like in a home where you were supposed to be good, I was like, no, you're not supposed to be angry. Like, or there was the whole idea like you can be angry, but you can't sin, or whatever the hell that means. Right.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think it's only the last couple years where I've recognized what anger feels like in my body. Like when I was taking a walk the other day, and I was walking by somebody's house that we had a little rupture, a relational rupture, and I noticed when I would walk by his house, my fist would be closed. like this. I'm right-handed. My right fist would be closed. And I was like, oh, this is anger showing up in my body. I don't even know that it's happening. It's just happening. So I would say I'm detached mostly, except for the last couple of years. How about you?
Oh, me? I mean, I feel like I saw it modeled growing up everywhere, right? It was like, so I feel a couple different ways about it. I think it's been a great tool for me. So I feel good about it in some ways, but then in others, I've had to rebuild my relationship with anger. I've had to decide like there's such things as like what anger can do to me that doesn't make me a great person. And there's ways that anger makes me the best version of myself when I'm passionate about something. And I, so yeah, I feel like I know it pretty intimately, the good and the bad.
I think the interesting thing to explore in this episode, as we're sort of creating the hypothesis for where we're about to head, is like anger is just anger. Like anger is not bad or good. Anger is a primary human emotion that shows up in the body. It literally is just the thing that happens precognitive when some kind of stimuli hits you, right? And then there's like different ways that anger sort of gets funneled, right? We can talk about the human aspect of anger. We can talk about anger that comes primarily from like the ego side of things. We can talk about like sort of righteous anger, right? That like comes out as this like justice, this like want to like protect kind of thing. But one of the stories I think that comes to mind, and I'm down to like talk about the deep and the fun and the childish ways of like all the things that make us angry, 100% down to go there. But I remember I was at this Rob Bell workshop maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. And there was a question that was asked, and I think it was a workshop about like finding your purpose or like finding your thing in the world and who you are. And he said to this person, he goes, pay attention to what makes you angry. Pay attention to what sparks joy inside of you, and pay attention to what makes you cry. These 3 things will tell you something about what you're meant to be and do in the world. It tells you about the things that matter to you. It tells you about your purpose for being alive. And I'd heard the thing around like what makes you cry or like what sparks joy, but like to also throw in the thing about what makes you angry, like what matters to you. Actually, I felt like awakened a whole new side of me.
I love that. That's a beautiful perspective on that, because it really is. There's a lot of information around anger if we're willing to witness it and be curious about it instead of feel shame about it or think that it's wrong or try to suppress it. I have a similar experience as both of you shared with anger, where it's been deeply suppressed based on conditioning around thinking it's bad to have. And it took me until my adult years, very recently even, to get really in touch with it. I actually had an experience at a retreat recently that had a lot of emotional, like group emotional release. And a lot of the emotional release was around anger. I was like, man, is there any other emotions we're going to release or just anger? And then kind of explain that it's like, that's really underneath a lot of the other emotions are actually kind of masking that, because it's the one most people are most afraid to do. And it was kind of like a fake it till you feel it moment for me, where I'm pounding this pillow and screaming and like doing all the things with my body they're telling us to do, and kind of feeling dumb and not really feeling it. And it took probably about 20 minutes of this for me before I was like, oh my God. It's like it took that long for my body to go through the motions for something to click of like, this is safe to let some of this out. And then it opened up, and I was shocked at how much was actually there, but it took some significant rewiring to realize that could be expressed and felt in a way that wasn't going to cause harm or wasn't mean. Even in prepping for this podcast, I was like, well, I don't want to say that because I don't want to be mean, or I don't want to make this person feel bad. So the conditioning's deep.
Michael, do you feel like the same? Like I'm thinking, we're 2 guys, like 2 males on the show, and then 1 female. Like females generally feel like they're maybe conditioned out of their anger, but like, if you were at a workshop like that and it was like tapping your anger, would you have any problems? Like, would you have any problems accessing?
No.
Exactly.
No. He says in the most like soft, sultry way, no.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. There's so many things that are happening when you get like really upset, right? And you're angry. And that's where if I had to say, like, I agree with that notion that like anger is not good or bad. It just is, right? You need to notice it and see it, right? But it's like almost instantly you're tying it to some conclusion. And that's where it can get like kind of toxic, where it's getting, but when you can like remove, okay, I don't want to make a conclusion about this. I'm just noticing that I'm angry. Why am I angry? Something's happening. I'm blocking something I want to do, or like something I'm choosing not to notice and overlook something, or I'm not okay with what's happening right now. You know, that those are all healthy things. But I do like, I think for a lot of people, it's like, we move so quickly to the conclusion that we convolute those things. Like we feel like the anger is the jealousy or whatever that it is the feeling we feel about like, oh, Brady, I'm angry because Brady said something, and without saying, what did Brady mean by, or why do I feel angry about that? I'm like, Brady's trying to hurt me, or Brady's, and that's where things are getting kind of messy, right? That's where it's like, no, he's probably not. You actually just got to talk to him. Just hold it.
Actually, that's like a really beautiful point, right? Like there's a stimuli, and then there's a sensation in the body, right? There's this overwhelming sensation, and most of us, I think, don't know how to hold that sensation, or we've actually never seen it modeled in a way that was a healthy way. Like I remember I was at a retreat, actually a Soul Games retreat, and one of the guys was angry with another guy because he heard the guy say something to him like shut up and sit down, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but this is what this guy heard, right?
Yeah.
And we had an older man in the older man. We had one of my good friends, Brian Maynard, there, right? And he was kind of like the facilitator therapist. And he goes, nobody gets taught how to express healthy anger in the world. And he goes, we need to see it modeled. And so what he did is he called this guy over who was furious with this other dude. And he said, I want you to put your hand on my back, like on my scapula, and I want you to feel the vibration of what true anger feels like that doesn't come out sideways. And sort of this guy is behind Brian and he's facing the other guy who he's mad at, right? And so Brian's sort of standing in the gap and he's going to show what healthy anger looks modeled like. And so he goes to the guy behind him. He goes, okay, I want you to push on my back. I want you to push on my back. And then I want you to feel the vibration when I say something to him. And he goes, you ready? The guy goes, yeah, I'm ready. And this 55-year-old, like mature, beautiful man looks at the other, this younger man. And he goes, no. And like you could see like the guy behind Brian just started to cry, like as he could feel the beauty of what that anger and how it was expressed kind of vibrated through his body, and sort of the way that he was with himself in such a deep and profound way that was all it needed to be, right? No, I don't like that. And I think I got discipled in anger that day. I was like, oh shit.
I'm so stuck on the fact that two angry men let a stranger come up and say, feel the vibration of anger in my back real quick. And they're like, okay, I'll do that. I'm like, what? How did that happen?
No. I mean, this was a retreat setting. This was like a workshop retreat setting. So
okay, that makes a little more sense. So
I didn't create the context.
Well, just in general, thinking about like interrupting two angry men in that context and like sharing it that way. Yeah. It created a good image in my head.
You know, and we live in a world that's like cancel culture heavy. Like when anger fires start, they just rage, right? Like it's so easy to get on the anger bandwagon and not actually be with the truth of what the anger is saying, right? Like, let's get into blame culture. Let's like whatever. But here's the truth about anger. It's like, it's a massively motivating force. Like it's anger is like something needs to be done. Their action needs to be taken. Somebody needs to be protected. Something needs to be taken care of. And the difficult thing about anger is like, if you suppress it, it comes out in sideways in all sorts of like weird ways. I mean, there's even things right now that like Gabor Mate, who I feel like we talk about in every episode, is like talking about when anger gets suppressed, like it comes out like cancer or like, I don't know, like I don't know exactly the thing, but it comes out weird, a disease and sickness and that kind of thing. So I think that the reason I've started to love anger, and this is why I love this show, you know, it makes me so mad, is like I have seen anger model my own value. I've seen it go like, oh, you matter. And when anger gets turned inward on itself, it actually is a shame response in the body. So if we can't be with anger, like if we can't be with the fact that we're angry at our parent and we then get mad at ourselves, we go to a shame response and we try to figure out how to adapt and change ourselves, then anger gets directed inward. And then it comes out in like all sorts of wild ways as far as how we like develop our personalities. And like maybe I become an achiever and like somebody else becomes a peacemaker and like somebody else like becomes a songwriter or whatever. But like I've started to see like when anger shows up in my body, instead of getting freaked out, I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't like to feel this sensation. I'm kind of going like, oh, thank you for telling me that I matter. Like, this is amazing. I feel my worth. And I feel like, hey, this doesn't work for me. Whatever the fuck is happening right now doesn't work for me. And to know that it's there to show up to protect me, actually, I've begun to like slowly become friends with it. So
it's beautiful. Well, on that note, should we talk about some stuff that pisses us off?
I mean, I think we already are, but I think it's time to go even deeper.
Let's do it.
So, time to get personal, boys and girls.
Let's get personal. 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 Let's get personal.
Let's get personal. Who's got the first story to bring us in?
I can kick us off.
You know what makes me so mad?
Okay, I'll start this. Okay,
do you have to start? Do you have to start the story with "You know what makes me so mad"?
Yes. Okay, you know what makes me so mad? This might piss some people off. Hopefully not, but I'm embracing it for this episode.
No, let's make some people mad. Like that's the whole point of this episode.
Yeah, feel the anger and enjoy it as you listen to me talk shit about this. What makes me so mad is just love and light culture in general. The whole like I'm devoted to the light and everything is perfect and I'm beautiful and I'm spiritual and I'm fucking Buddha himself. Like that shit pisses me off. It's because I think it manifests as this massive avoidance of responsibility and avoidance of conflict. And I feel like it reads as so inauthentic. I've encountered so many people in kind of the woo-woo conscious community. It's like they're wearing spirituality as this costume and persona, and they're like repeating words that they heard on a podcast like ours. Like the Soul Games. Like, and it's like, no is that
no bad vibes. Love and light.
It's just, people would just be like, I'm just going to hold space for you while you express this because it's clearly coming from your own unhealed trauma. And it's not about me doing something shitty to you. So I'm just going to hold space. That kind of shit. It pisses me off, dude. So I have a personal story connected to it. You have something to share?
I was gonna be like, whoa, I was just gonna be like, this sounds like it's personal. Like it sounds like it's personal.
I mean, there's a million times I've run into this, both on the internet and in real life, amongst the conscious world. But I recently as in like mid last year, had to actually make the decision to cut off a friendship due to this type of behavior, specifically the avoidance of responsibility, where anytime I would be like, hey, I need to talk to you about this thing that you did that hurt me, it would just be like some type of just avoiding it completely to kind of maintain this inner ego persona of I can't do anything bad or wrong and I couldn't possibly have done that. And so I feel like there was a big realization for me of, okay, I can't go deep in relationship with people who don't have the ability to own like, yeah, I did that and it was fucked up. Like that's become a non-negotiable for me for relationships. And I've noticed specifically in the conscious community, that's something that for some reason a lot of people don't do. And so I kind of joked to one of my friends the other day. I was like, I think I'm done hanging out with hippies, dude. Like, I don't know. There's just like something about it. So yeah, there's a good friend of mine, Carolyn Elliott, who wrote Existential Geek. Well, good friend is an exaggeration. We like our internet friends and talked a few times.
You're like Instagram friends.
She's my best friend. I feel like I call everybody my good friend, even if I've met them once. That's outing myself. But she said once we were talking about this, that when people say that they're devoted to the light, she's like, I kind of run away. It freaks me out a bit. I like would prefer that you were at least a little bit devoted to mischief and like evil, like slightly. And so I think that's kind of become something for me.
Because everybody is. So it's like, at least they're being honest.
Yeah, at least acknowledge it.
I don't trust anybody that's not being honest. Right? Like people are like, oh, we just gotta love. Like that, like everything's just like love and like light and like be the light. I'm like, oh, I don't trust you at all because you have not befriended this side of you that you're repressing right now. And because you haven't befriended your own darkness, it's going to come out. It always comes out. Like always.
Always. Always.
God. Yeah. Man, I totally track. I agree 100%. Love and light culture. Bye. Bye, Felicia.
Nope. Makes me mad.
Nope.
I don't think I've ever met anybody that has said that phrase that I'm so dedicated to the light. Like,
wow.
That feels super whack. Like if somebody says that,
super
I'm like,
whack.
Wow.
I don't know if people say it like specifically like that, but even in Christian culture, I feel like is that thing where it's like you're devoted, you're spiritually devoted to like Christification or sanctification or purification. Like all that stuff kind of freaks me out a bit.
No, you're right. There's probably 100 different variations of how people say that, but the basic idea is like I'm pure and I'm dedicated to.
Yeah, you're running from your own darkness. Like you're trying to get rid of it somehow instead of integrate it in a healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah, which just isn't real. It's a great segue to what makes me mad.
Come on, baby. Let's go. What makes you so mad, Michael?
I just can't. It's hard for me when people aren't like authentically showing up to conversations like that. Like if I feel, Brady and I are good examples on this. Like we've had conflict. And when we do, especially over the last year, over the last year, I don't know that I've worked it out better with anyone than you, because it's just been like Brady owns his stuff. Like he owns it 100%. And he also denies where it's like, no, you're wrong. I don't feel like that. And that for me is so important. Cause if I may come to a conflict and say like, hey, I feel like this is what you were trying to do to me in that situation. And you just don't say anything, or you say like there's no truth. But somebody like Braids, he'll come to you and say like, okay, I'll meet you, 25% of the way because this is what I was trying to do. So I can see why you had the conclusion, but I wasn't doing what I made you feel. But most people aren't like that, most people, for them to admit that they did something wrong is sort of like them saying like, I'm not valuable, so I'm not going to do that. And it's a crisis moment and they start panicking. And that's really hard. I mean, I can have empathy, especially for like casual friendships when that happens. But for people that I know really, really well, that's a really hard thing. Because how deep can we get until we're both willing to own what we did wrong and say, all right, I respect this boundary that you're putting in front of me. And it's that boundary is actually not to control anybody else. If you are putting a boundary down and it controls somebody, it's about them not having ability in your space, right? It's about you saying, this is safe for me and I don't want you overstepping that. But it's not about controlling their behavior. Like that's not a real boundary. That's just manipulation. But when you can say like, hey, if you could communicate more with me, that would help me understand you a little bit more. And for someone to say, okay, I'll try. I'm going to try to communicate more with you. that's real beauty there. That's like two people showing up and authentically meeting each other in that space.
Wait, because I've said that to you a couple of times.
Yeah.
Can you just communicate with me a little bit more? Like, that's all I need. Like, that's all I need.
Yeah.
Just communicate a little bit more. Let me know what's up.
Let me know.
Yeah, I empathize with the empathizing because I do have a lot of empathy for that, because we're really not taught how to communicate in conflict most of the time. And it's probably the most threatening thing to a human ego to admit that we fucked up. And so I have a lot of empathy for it. But I think that what you're getting at, Michael, that I'm hearing is like, it starts with at least a willingness to try or learn, and to be authentic in that of like, okay, maybe I don't know how to do this. And this is like that time of the podcast where I plug nonviolent communication again, which will probably happen every podcast because it's my favorite tool, which is ironic hearing the name of it, nonviolent communication. It kind of sounds like a love and light thing, but it's not. I promise. It's kind of like similar to Brady sharing about Brian saying to put the hand on the back and feel this healthy expression of anger, because nonviolent communication is so much about making direct requests when something's off, being like, hey, this made me feel this way. Could you do this thing? And that direct request is so important. And a lot of times people aren't willing to do that, so they'll just throw blame and like throw story and do everything in the world to avoid and just be in the emotion of being hurt, and that just doesn't really get anywhere good from what I found.
No, I think mirroring is really, really a great tool too to use. Like when you can just repeat to somebody what they're trying to communicate to you, that just has a way of breaking down. I mean, it's a very simple, like, the first thing you learn in therapy, or one of the first things you learn in therapy, is like, hey, just listen. Are you listening to your partner?
Yeah.
And that's not just in romantic relationships, like any relationship. Like, hey, I think I hear you saying this. Is that true? And I mean, it's a powerful way for you to have empathy for someone in a time whenever it seems hard to have empathy for them.
For sure.
Yo, I mean, this is like, I'm remembering some of our moments, like, or some of like our conflict moments, Michael, that we've like had, and like how scary it has been. I mean, even like you and I have had some moments, right, where we've had like misunderstanding and like conflict and some difficult conversations, and like I remember in those conversations how difficult it is to say, like, to assert my truth and also be like, assert what I need and also say I'm sorry, and like the dance between all of those. But I have really enjoyed a new experience, I think, with you guys in the midst of those conflicts, because like all of that actually has to be in play in a healthy, like, you know what makes me so mad conversation, like all of that, like taking responsibility, like saying, hey, actually this is the truth, I didn't do that, and like, like an ability to like hear somebody and like meet them in the middle and go like, hey, this is actually what I need and what do you need, right? Like those are such wild conversations. Because I never saw my parents like do those.
No, most people probably didn't. And it requires something difficult, which is to be aware that there's two different experiences happening and both of them are valid.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is tough. What pisses you off, Brady? What makes you mad?
I was just going to say, like, Michael, your example like leads straight into mine, which is like, literally, if you want to be my enemy, if you want to like piss me off the most, you know what makes me so mad? Just ghost me. Just like straight up ghost me.
That shit
like
hurts.
It's not even like, it's not even like you could say the meanest thing to me, but at least like I know that like you actually kind of care because you like made the effort to at least be my enemy. Like if you ghost me, and like we can get into all sorts of different kinds of ghosting. But if you ghost me, it's like I don't even exist. Like I don't even
burning
matter
in my chest right now as I hear you say
I don't
that
even
one.
matter enough to exist. And the worst kind is online dating. Like, and like, I mean, listen, there's worse kinds where like, if you have like I've actually had some like almost best friends in my life, like ghost me for months at a time. And like, that was some of the deepest pain I've like almost ever felt. And feeling ignored, and like I had to drop it. I dropped into this moment one time, like in a therapy moment, where like it was like my brother and like I was 5, and I wanted him to play, and like he was playing a video game, and he wanted to keep doing his thing, and I wanted to play with him, and I was like, bro, let's play, and he was like, nope, and like this whole like deep amount of grief like opened up inside of me, and I cried, and like I felt like all this stuck energy got released inside of me, but like. Listen, that's like a whole different, I mean, that's a thing. But like, bro, online dating sucks. You know what makes me so mad? Online dating and getting ghosted.
Literally, I'm sure that's the experience. I had an experience recently with online dating on kind of the opposite side of that, where I had been messaging with somebody. We hadn't met up yet, but we had been messaging for a bit, even talked on the phone once. And then I started feeling like I just don't have the capacity for this right now. And so I sent a message and I was like, hey, I just want to be upfront with you. Like, this is what's going on in my life. Like, I don't have the capacity. It's been great. Like, I'll reach out, if things change. And this like made this person fall in love with me, because how rare that was, apparently, which I was like, fuck, that kind of went counterintuitive. But it was a guy. He was like, I have to specify that because I date all genders. But this was a dude in this situation. And he was like, no one's ever done that to me before. Like I'm so like impressed, and it's so hot that you just like, it kind of made him really into me. Which probably didn't make it easier, but I was shocked that he literally said no one had ever done the courtesy of like, hey, I'm going to let you know that I'm not here for this anymore. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
It like, I would be so grateful if somebody did that to me, right? Like, just be like, hey, just tell me the truth.
Hard.
Like,
it's really surprising.
Well, it is hard, but like once you get practice, you're like,
yeah.
Oh,
well, I say it's not that hard in the sense that it took me 5 minutes of my time, to just be like, I'm just gonna let this person know rather than ghost them, so they're not wondering what happened.
And we live in such a culture where like you can literally avoid anybody all the time because the world is so big, and like you kind of like engage in this social aspect, right? So like we're not in small towns like a New London, Minnesota, where I grew up, like 1,000 people, where like you're gonna see them the next day at school. Like I live in Nashville, and there's like 1 million people here, right? And like you can, if you want to just like ghost somebody, you can find a way to never ever see them again. But like,
is there a level where it's okay? Like, what's the point where is there any time where it's okay to ghost?
Yeah, I think so.
Like when's the line?
I think when somebody just pushes, when they like think that it's playful to keep going, even though you clearly are not interested, and they keep pushing that because they're persistent or because
so you meaning after you've already communicated that you're not interested?
Yeah. I think, yeah. Before that, I guess.
But is that ghosting though? If you communicated that you're not interested, doesn't that make it not ghosting?
I guess you're right. Yeah. I guess it wouldn't be ghosting at that point. It'd just be like dropping it off.
Yeah. Because to me, ghosting is like disappearing without any explanation.
Unless someone's doing something really ratchet to you, like unless somebody's like just awful to you and you just don't feel safe, I don't know if there's like I don't know.
Y'all, well, there's like a couple of things that come to mind as you guys are talking about this. Like, I've had this person send me repeated Instagram reel stories, like one of the conspiracy kind of things, like over and over again over the last like 2 weeks.
That shit makes me so mad.
It makes me so mad. But I finally was like, I'm sure this person will stop if I don't respond, right? Like I didn't watch anything, I didn't whatever, but my phone keeps buzzing. And then I finally like wrote and I was like, hey, just so you know, like this, I'm not like really into this kind of stuff. And so I would appreciate it if you just didn't pass them along anymore. And then I don't think this person read that message because I probably just didn't respond for a long time. And then they just kept sending me. And then I went restrict, like maybe not like full block mode, but like I went restrict. So like the other thing is, right, like here's the other thing when we're getting like the dating world, like I've done the slow fade, right? Like I've done like not like full ghost mode, but like slow fade where you go on a date or two and you're like, oh, I'm not really feeling it. So like maybe I'll respond. Maybe in the last year, I started experimenting with just telling the truth. Like just like being like, hey, we're in person. Maybe it's a second date. And I'm like, actually, like, it feels like more like a friend thing for me. I'm like not into this on this level, and I just wanted to be honest and let you know. Or one time I went on this date with this girl, and I think she was super into me by the end, and I was just like bored to tears by the end. And I like left her a voice memo, and I said, "Hey, I think you're really great, but like, it's a friend thing for me." I never heard back. Like I know she never responded, but she told me like so many guys would just like ghost her and not say a thing, and she has no idea why they wouldn't like follow back up. And so I was like, well, I'm just gonna give her the gift of like letting her know like that I'm not interested in, why I'm not interested in, that she was great, but like I don't even know if that's a good thing to do.
I think it is. And I feel like it's a little easier in the early phases when they're still kind of strangers to just be like, what do I have to lose, to be honest? Someone hit on me. I was trying to think of the right word there. Hit on me via OfferUp, the app where you sell things.
Oh.
The other day, I literally just on a listing, like I hadn't met up with them or anything. They just like, I guess, saw my profile picture on OfferUp and like sent me a message asking me, they're like, let me take you out for coffee this weekend. Worst case, I buy your throw pillows. Best case, we fall in love. That's what they said.
My God, what did you say?
Well, that's what I was like,
say?
I have nothing to lose to just be like fully honest with this person. I was like, this is hilarious and made my day. And I'm like super polysaturated at the moment. But it's just like, I'm just going to be honest, like with you. I'm dating too many people to date you right now, which I'm like, I'm just going to cut to the chase. I don't know this person. They're a stranger from OfferUp. Why not just tell them the truth?
Michael, have you ever been polysaturated?
Man,
There's a
no.
buzzword
I
for
feel
you.
like
I've never had a problem being polysaturated.
I feel like
it's
that-
an interesting experience.
Here
that
comes
is a
Brady's red
sneak-
face.
It's a sneaky flex. That is a sneaky flex.
That was sneaky. I'm like,
Yeah.
Mom, I don't know what that means either, Mom. I'm not even sure.
There's always a point in every episode where I make Brady turn really red, and it's because he's worried about his mom, and I'm saying some ratchet shit about my
Yeah,
sex life.
Ratchet.
It's okay, Brady. Your mom can just think that I'm ratchet with a wild sex life. She doesn't have to know anything about her good boy.
Oh, Mom, you don't have to listen anymore to this conversation or this podcast, but I love you. Thank you for supporting me.
Oh my God, so good.
God, that's amazing. All right. So we got any more personal stories around, makes me so mad?
Yeah, I got kind of like a sillier one, a more random pet peeve. That's what's funny about these is like, what's kind of nice about it is we all get pissed off by different things that maybe wouldn't piss someone else off. And it's like, we're allowed to be pissed off about whatever we want because it's our own personal preference. But this is a random one that probably doesn't bother most people. But little known, here's a more obvious flex. I'll just flex immediately. I was state champion in debate in high school. I was like crazy debater, and like it used to annoy the shit out of my dad because I would try to debate him on everything at home, and he's like, I'm not trying to debate you right now, but I just was annoying like that. Like I just want to debate everyone all the time. So that little high school debate girl still lives inside of me somewhere. And when people in real life argument debate type situations use logical fallacies, meaning like bad logic, basically, in their arguments, I turn into a pretentious asshole immediately. Like my most pretentious side comes out, and all of a sudden I'm like, that's a straw man argument. That's a false dichotomy. Like, I just can't stand it. And all those are probably words that everybody listening is like, what the fuck are these? But like, for example, a straw man fallacy is like, this happens all the time in political debates. People just don't know what it's called. But it's when you try to respond to an argument by talking about something completely different and you just take the conversation in another direction. You're like, that is not even addressing what I just said, but they think it's an argument. That shit annoys me so much. I was like, I want to make like an online course to teach people how to argue properly, but no one would take it. Like no one would buy that course.
Well,
but it's needed.
I bet that one is the most common everyday argument between people thing that happens.
Yes, it's so common.
People constantly move the goalpost, and like you as the person aggrieved have to look at that person and say, let's deal with that thing if that's a thing. But right now, let's stay on the thing that I like, the whole reason why we're in this conversation. It's the only way you can get anything done, because what happens is it pisses off like let's say you and I have an argument and I do that strategy. I bring up something totally unrelated and you get upset because I accused you of something you didn't do. Then we chase that, right?
Yeah.
And then you're in another 45 minutes of nothing. Like you didn't get what you really wanted to talk about
politically all the time. Like a classic example is Black Lives Matter. Oh, all lives matter. It's like, that's not, those two things don't go against each other, which is also kind of, that one's also kind of false dichotomy, which is like trying to make things an either or that are not an either or. Like that's probably more technically what that one is, what that fallacy is. But you see that a lot with like abortion arguments, like any hot political topics. You see those two specifically, those two fallacies all over the place, where people make things opposite that are not opposite, or they respond to something with something completely different. And it just irritates the shit out of me. I can't stand it.
The slippery slope fallacy is my, it's the worst political one for me. Like I cannot stand slippery slopes.
Wait, what is
Look at you knowing fallacies, Michael.
What is a slippery slope?
I was a little bit of a debater back in my day.
Flex on that. Okay, I see you. I see you.
Not a state level, but
That's amazing.
Yeah, basically like if we let this happen, this chain of events is going to happen, and it's going to, the world's going to end because of it. So
all of them are like, if you just Google, if anybody's like fascinated by this and wants to be a pretentious dork like me, just Google logical fallacies. You'll find like whole lists of them, and you'll start noticing that they're everywhere in political conversations. And I think most people, especially if you care about having those conversations in a way that's effective, actually maybe changing someone's mind or getting them to think differently, it's worth being aware of these things so you can make a good argument and actually like respond intelligently to something that someone brings up as a concern, and not just fall into the typical pitfalls of like the standard conservative versus liberal arguments that everybody just repeats over and over.
Learn when to disengage. Like it's not like this, you're not worth my time. I'm not going to spend this time educating you. If you care, you'll do the work. So
yeah. Can I give you guys like a really shallow one that makes me so mad?
Yes. Hit us.
Guys, I can't when I'm stopped in traffic. I just can't. Like, it makes me so mad. Like, why are all these cars in front of me? I need to get somewhere. I feel
that way about people walking. I feel the same when people are walking really slow, and I'm
right
like,
in front of you.
Like foot traffic pisses me off more than cars. But yeah, I feel you on that one.
It makes me. It's wild. I've actually brought it to my therapist. Like I've been like, literally, I can't, like, I would rather get off an exit, drive 15 minutes around the stop traffic, take 5 minutes longer than it would
feel like you're moving.
Like I'm moving.
Where else does this show up in your life, Brady? I wonder. It says so much about you. You know what they say about people who get angry in traffic is it's really your anger at other things that you don't feel comfortable letting it out there, so you let it out at the traffic.
Yeah. So I'll say this. I don't get road rage, like that kind of anger. I just am like, it's this feeling like I can't get to my goals. Like I can't get where I want to go, and my goals are being blocked. And like a classic Enneagram 3 over here, like if I don't get to accomplish the thing I'm setting out to accomplish, then I'm not going to get the love that I need to get. So I'm furious that you're blocking me from getting love, or at least getting the hit of self like satisfaction that I have by accomplishing this thing. I need the dopamine hit. Like somebody, if you're not letting me get to where I need to go, I'm not going to get the dopamine hit that I need to exist and feel okay in the world. You know what I'm saying?
That's deep.
Well, it's just true inside of my body. Like this is the shit that I have to deal with for 41 years, bro. It's hard being Brady Tube sometimes, you know? Do you guys not
Amazing.
are you guys not impatient when it comes to traffic? Or are you like my brother's the most patient person in the world. Like he's so patient. I'm the most impatient person I know in the world.
Like I said, it's worse for me with foot traffic. Like when people are walking and blocking the whole way and they're walking so slow, that one gets me way more than being in a car. I enjoy being in, I mean, I live in LA. It's like, I've been totally numbed out to traffic, desensitized after a certain point.
I definitely do, Brady. I feel the same way. It's like, you're a bad driver. You shouldn't be on the road. And but you know, I don't say anything out loud. I don't verbalize it at all because it just feels bad. Just feels
right. It's like I'm not a good human.
Nobody's in here. It's just me. It's just me. They can't hear me. So it's so frustrating whenever. But you know, for me, where I go is, man, I could have done so many more things to not feel these feelings right now. That's where I immediately go. And then I get mad about that. I get mad at myself for that. So,
wow.
I'm actually probably the one in the car that's like blocking y'all. And then when you honk at me and drive past me, I smile and wave passive aggressively. Have a nice day. Bless you. That's me on the road.
Oh my God.
Because I'm too busy, like deep in a thought, not really paying attention.
Well, you're dedicated to the light, so it's like
you are love and light. You're all love and light.
Yeah, love and light.
All right, we got any more personal stories about what makes us so mad?
I'm good on those.
All right, you got any more, Michael?
I'm good.
All right, well, let's move it into the social.
Let's get social. Let's get social. Ooh, let's get social.
Let's get social, where we commentate on what's happening in the world. Instagram, TikToks, trends, cultural trends, basically anything around what makes us so mad. All right, Emily, I know you got something.
So this is where my like not wanting to be mean really kicked up for me, because I was like, I can't show anything specific or call out anyone specific because then I'm just gonna feel like an asshole. So I want to talk about a social media thing that's more general, and I'll give a specific example. But something that makes me really mad on the internet, specifically within TikTok trend culture, is when people trendify things so quickly just to try to catch what's happening without taking into consideration that a lot of times there's like a human being or maybe a deeper issue behind that. And everyone's so obsessed with just like the virality and how quickly trends move. It makes people not really think twice about what they're sharing, what they're posting. And so you get this thing where things just explode all of a sudden and everybody's jumping on the trend. And sometimes it's like, whoa, this is problematic. Like whether it's around something racist or around mental health issues. Like I've seen it happen with audios that'll start trending that are like, oh, we shouldn't be making jokes about that. Or like even filters, like certain face filters that I've seen trending that are like, oh, that's a little racist. Like, but there's this culture with TikTok and how quickly it moves and how obsessed people are with going viral and catching the trend quickly that sometimes it's been like off. And one that I noticed that happened somewhat recently, a few months ago, was a big YouTuber, Gabby Hanna, who openly is bipolar, and she had a manic episode and was like posting a bunch of TikToks, like over 100 in a day. I think it was like crazy. She was just like in a manic episode, posting. And there was one where she was screaming like, somebody help me. And like the audio of that video, people started making fun of it and it went viral. And within like a couple of days, there was 43,000 videos utilizing this audio of someone having a manic episode, because people thought it was like funny and they were making jokes about it and stuff. And I'm like, imagine this girl. And there's a whole nother layer in there of what makes me mad, of like people dehumanizing celebrities and social media stars and really like jumping on any excuse to gain exposure, popularity, to like shit on them. Which is something that I definitely noticed in that. And I'm like, imagine this girl, like she comes down from the manic episode and sees like 43,000 people making fun of her. Like that's fucks people up. Like our brains are not wired for that. And so how quickly stuff moves on social media and how quickly people are willing to jump on a trend to catch some attention, even if it's at another human being's expense. I think that's really can cause a lot of damage to the person on the other side of that. So that's something that pisses me off about socials.
I totally relate. Like in the context of like critic culture, right? Like we've got the few people who are like on the field with the blood, the sweat, and the tears. And then we've got hundreds of thousands who just never get on the field and just critique and like commentate and tear down and like Stephen A. Smith vibes. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, come on, bro. Right? Like, let's give a little more respect, right, to the one in the middle of the field.
Yeah. And you can think like, oh, you should have tough skin if you're going to be putting yourself out there. But like, there's an aspect of the inner child that as tough as you try to be, like I've had a few things go viral, like over 1 million views. And some of them were because of controversies in the comments and people not liking what I was saying or posting. And so I've gotten a micro taste of what that feels like. And as much as you might think that you can be tough or let it brush off you, it lands and it impacts you, especially when it's happening over and over and over. And people really don't realize the power of their words on the internet.
Yeah.
There's, and you know, on the racist tip, that is like wild how clueless people are to the things that they're recording.
Yes.
And that goes off on TikTok all the time.
Yes.
And it's like so unbelievable. Like you look at it and you think, how do you not know what you're doing right now? Like what you sound like. It is a real thing. That's heavy.
Does that hit you harder, like Michael, for being like a brown guy? You know, like do you feel the sting of it or no?
You know, you kind of laugh at them. Like you guys are so like, if it was somebody I knew, maybe it would feel like a sting. But for the most part, you're like, man, you're really dumb. Like it's just you have not done the work to educate yourself on anything, and that's why you sound so ignorant right now. So I don't know that it's like, I don't spend a lot of time in it. Like I don't, but you see it and you kind of just shake your head about it.
Yeah. I get it. All right, Michael, you got one for the Let's Get Social side of you know what makes him so mad? Yeah,
I'll take a little bit of a different angle on it and you guys can tell me if we should, I'll have a backup just in case. But so there's a new television show called Shrinking. Have you guys heard of the show?
No.
So it's, there's only a couple episodes out. I've watched them both. And Jason Segel is one of the stars. He was in, you guys know who that is?
I'm a huge fan of him, so please don't ruin it for me right now.
Okay. And then Jessica Williams is like, plays in it too. She's a big part of it. And then Harrison Ford is the third. And the three of them are psychologists. Maybe they're psychiatrists. They all work in the same practice together. And the premise of the show is that something really tragic has happened to Jason and he's grieving, you know, and his life's kind of a mess as he's going through the process. But he's a therapist, so he's having to work with patients who also have their own issues and things like that. And one of the guys on the show, one of his patients, has an issue with anger. And it's so interesting to see him walk through that with them, because some of it is a little bit tropey, but he like basically the guy has a problem whenever he feels disrespected, he takes it to the next level and like physically assaults a person. If like somebody bumps him, and he's like a big dude, right? And so he takes him to this like MMA gym, and he puts him in a boxing ring with someone who knows how to box, and he's much smaller than him, but he gets beat up because, I mean, the guy with the anger issues gets beat up because he just doesn't know how to box, and so he's helping him sort of channel that thing. But it's a really beautiful. He doesn't like stigmatize like, you know, his anger, even though it's a really violent anger. Like it's actually, it could really, I mean, he's hurt people, but he really loves them through it and kind of like bails them out of jail and all this stuff. So no more spoilers. I won't do any more spoilers, but The show, I think, is going to be like the next Ted Lasso phenomenon in terms of like this heart wrenching story that people love. And so I'll put you guys on that game. I feel like if you like television, this is a show you should put in your mix for sure.
That sounds, as you're telling the plot of it, this is the like most LA thing I feel like I could ever say, but I think I helped a friend put an audition tape down for that. The storyline sounds really familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember him mentioning Jason Segel being in it. So
he's so good.
Yeah.
I've never really watched anything with him before, but he's so good.
Yeah. I'll definitely check that out. That sounds dope. Brady, what you got?
I wish I like when anybody is like, hey, do you know this guy or this show? I'm like, wait, what? There's like media in the world. I feel like I just don't know anybody. I'm like, anyway, I'm just commenting about like that. But I always respect Mike Romero. Like, you are always on the edge of like pop culture and like what's happening and like what the vibe is and like where it is. And I just am like, yo, if I need to feel cool or like relevant or like something in the know, like I just have to talk to you for like an hour. And I'm like, yes, now I know stuff again. Like, it's amazing. Okay, cool. I'm like an old grandpa. All right. I've probably already talked about this. I'll probably talk about it like way too many times throughout this Soul Games podcast season. But I think one of the things in culture that makes me furious is, if I could put it really simply, is like incongruence. So this comes out in all sorts of different ways, but like incongruence, like there's 25-year-old life coaches on Instagram like talking about like the thing that they know that like is the truth and they're 100% certain, and they're talking about how like, you know, mindset, it's all about mindset, and you got to that heals that, you know, you wake up depressed and you just got to like get your mind right, you know, and then like you just like then you do your cold exposure and like you're good, or like, you know, like
manifest, you got to manifest,
you got to manifest the love and light
stuff. Yeah, like
those are the same people.
They're the same people. Like it's, or like people are like, yeah, they get on these bandwagons like, yeah, psychedelics heals depression. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm a huge a proponent of psychedelics, right? But like, it's not psychedelics that heals depression. It's way more nuanced than that. Like these people that they just don't, they have this confidence level and maybe they only talk about their successes and it's just an ego game. And I'm like, what are we even doing? I think this is what makes me so mad. That it was incongruence, but like what makes me so mad is like we live in a culture that oftentimes the amount of ambition it takes to sort of climb the ranks in the world doesn't equate to like an equal sense of like maturity and congruence and like wholeness as a human. Like I get so mad that like the greatest spiritual teachers in the world, probably nobody knows who they are. Mm-hmm. They don't know because like the level of ambition is required oftentimes to get up to that level. And it could be any industry. It doesn't have to be spiritual teachers. It could be like doctors, or it could be like, you know, artists, or like I wished that like the most famous people in the world were the ones that actually could be real heroes. Like, and some of them are like, actually it's amazing. It's actually amazing to me when any sort of famous person has any sense of like depth and maturity and like deep wisdom. Like I love Oprah Winfrey. Like I'm a massive Oprah fan. Like any of these people, and I know that some of them are real. Like I've seen Eckhart Tolle in person. I'm like, that dude's the real deal. But like, then there's other people that talk and I'm like, whoa. You just learned how to sell 1 million books and like copy Eckhart's message, but in like a way that like spoke to, you know, middle-aged women. Right. Like I'm like that, like incongruence is what like kills me. It makes me so mad. Like, I'm like, come on, like be the real deal or just get out of the way. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys feel, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but like it bothers me so much.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I feel like it's a product of kind of the dark side of the digital age and social media where, like you said, what it requires to pop off and really build a following around you is not actually being like the best or having the most unique thing to say. It's knowing how to play the game the right way and really be consistent about it and package it in a digestible way, even if it's not an original message or it's not really integrated fully, especially in kind of the self-help world. And a lot of social media culture is like copy pasting. And which is a whole nother thing that makes me mad is when people on their Instagram stories just post like 20 text posts in a row and you're just like clicking through and you're like, what the, like, I don't want to read all these things. It's just like the whole culture of it is taking something and sharing it in your own words or reposting it. And so you don't see a lot of those original geniuses.
Yeah. I think for me, I think it could shift so easily depending on tone. Like that person you're talking about, 25 years old or not, if they just had a different tone when they're talking about what they're doing and what they have to do, it would make it so much more digestible. But it is that sort of attitude that like, I've already arrived. I already know it all. And
the
you
certainty.
don't. The certainty,
and you
right?
don't.
or the like, this is the way kind of mentality of like, I figured it out and it's this, where it's like, I
and
agree
all
that
it
it's
takes
a posture shift sort of like, here's a way that helps me.
Right. Because all it takes is like, this is what's been true for me. That's all it takes. And then say it. And then great. But it's the sort of, and it's with everything. It's like all these societal conclusions that we make, like, that are not black, like are truly not black and white, like how we get to healing or how we get to enlightenment. It's like, just have a little bit of humbleness when you're going there. It would go a long way to bring in a lot more people with you if that's what you really care about. But if it's clout,
a common theme in our values collectively of authenticity and humility.
Yeah.
Our anger is teaching us what we have in common.
Exactly. Well, hey, let's move to the last segment of the podcast called Let's Get Deep.
Let's get deep.
Beautiful, Em. Beautiful. Love your voice. This is the part of the podcast where we ask a deep question. I'm pulling a card today from We're Not Really Strangers.
This makes me scared every time.
Right? Why does it make you scared?
Because it's like, it drops into real vulnerability in the moment. I feel like this is the part in the show where I switch from like all the things I rehearsed and here's my persona to like, fuck, we're going to talk about what's alive. Which is beautiful, but it scares the shit out of me every time. Let's do it.
Me too, actually. I like it. All right. Well, this is the question. And I think what we'll do, because I just read it, you guys will answer it for me. And then each of you guys will ask the question and we'll like kind of tag team on each other. So here's a question. What parts of yourself do you see in me? What parts of yourself do you see in me?
I see in the part of myself that I see in you, Brady, is the question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I see a very similar, I think this is the reason that we're doing this podcast together. We have a very similar lighthearted, playful approach to what people might call spiritual or philosophical, of wanting to understand the human experience and how it works, but wanting to laugh a lot along the way and not take it quite too seriously and not approach it with certainty, but with mystery. I think that's a big part of me that I see in you.
Thank you. I'm scared. What do you got, Michael?
Oh man. Probably a lot of different areas, but I think curiosity is probably the thing that I see the most in you. You've are sort of always open for that creative conversation or to hear somebody's side of something that that they may be dealing with or holding in. And I think you do that extremely well, but it's because like you're actually curious. Like you really want to learn and you want to know what's going on inside someone. And that makes for really, really great conversations, I think. And that's something that I love too. Like I love the idea of getting to know someone, but actually listening to what they're saying, not just coming to the conclusion that I know what you're, or you don't project, you just like listen and you embrace. And I probably somewhere in there is probably what I see the most.
Oh, that's super sweet. Thank you guys.
I was
It's
gonna
very
say, like,
touching.
you're really handsome, and so I see that.
Well, I was gonna. I was gonna say that to Emily when she asked if she's up next. Like, what parts of yourself do you see in me? I'm like, I see my ravishing good looks, like just like my drop dead bombshell of the self. Like, I just can see it all over. Like when I look at you, I see like I'm fire. Like I'm straight fire.
That's amazing.
Oh my god. No, this is a great question. We're going to answer it for Emily now, right? What parts of yourself do you see in M? I think one, there could be a lot, like I said, like you said, Michael, but I think one of the kind of more nuanced parts of you that I see in me is kind of this, I would explain it like a little bit of Cancer vibes, where like I actually have this thing where I'm a little bit like I would rather not kind of speak up and say the truth if it's gonna feel like it's not gonna be received well, or like if it's kind of a hard thing to say, or like you've mentioned like, oh, you're like my avoidant thing or whatever. Like, I don't think you're like super avoidant, and I'm actually not that avoidant either. But like this thing where it's like, rather than saying it just straight, like I kind of do this thing where like sometimes if it's hard, I'll just like say it a roundabout like way. I'll just like cushion it in. And I think that sometimes you do that as well. I think it's like a sweet thing more than it's like a bad thing. But it gives me I think it gives me a little bit more compassion for you, because I have the same quality and I know how difficult sometimes it is to like a communication style that like is really trying to keep you safe, because I know it's trying to keep me safe. So sometimes I see that inside of you because it's in me.
Beautiful.
This is good because I don't have that level of connection with or intimacy with Emily like you guys have together, but I feel like I can see this pretty clearly, I think. So, I box I train boxing, right? And in boxing, there's a couple different ways that a fighter can approach a fight. They can fight off their back foot, which is basically someone who's like a counterpuncher. They're like waiting for someone to do something. They're downloading the data of their tendencies and the things that they do. And then they're countering that with whatever's going to be effective for them. Then there's the front foot person who's more like, they're going to go after you a little bit more aggressively and they're going to keep coming forward. And you're going to be the one backing up, And I feel like I can see, or it feels like this is true, Emily, that like I am, a lot of times I'm watching and kind of downloading the data to figure out like, who am I, like, how do I most effectively engage in this conversation here? And you're very thoughtful. You seem very thoughtful about how to approach relationships and how to love on someone and how to like be there for somebody. And I like to think that in my best moments, I'm like that too, I feel like that's a little bit more, the analytical part of you is just so strong, and it's admirable. It's something that is like, it also, I think makes people really take you seriously and say like, you don't come off like, I'm not saying that you strike fear in someone or something, but people have reverence for you when they approach, because they're like, I'm not just going to come out here carelessly. And that's because you have this rule. A lot of stuff is happening in here while the conversation's going. I think it's great. I think it's beautiful.
Wow, I feel so seen. I resonate with that for sure.
Amazing. Well, we'll answer it for Michael. What are the parts of ourselves that we see in you? I mean, obviously the ravishing good looks. Like I can double up on that one. Like obviously.
I can start.
Yeah, go for it.
I see. Yeah, same. It's kind of fun doing it with someone that we don't know each other super well. So it's kind of off of just what I perceive from you. But there's something about you that is, you have a confidence in a similar way that I do, where it doesn't feel like a cocky confidence, but it's like you're like sure of yourself in a way where what other people think or what other people are going to say about you is going to be like, okay, cool, you think that, but like I know I'm the fucking shit, so like whatever. But not in like an asshole arrogant way, like in a sort of humble way, but it's like a healthy self-confidence that just exudes off of your energy where you're comfortable with yourself. And I feel that way. I feel very comfortable with myself, and like I know who I am, and it doesn't really matter what other people think. So there's sort of like an energetic essence in the way that you speak, the way that you carry yourself, that I can tell that you're sure of yourself, but with a healthy dose of humility as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Something that I say to myself a lot of times is like observe what's happening. Don't absorb it. Observe it. And that's helped me a lot to do that in particular. Just be like, oh, that's okay. That's interesting. And it is your truth. Like I am whatever. And as long as it's not, me trying, not being hurtful to someone, I am okay with how you perceive me. Like that's okay.
I would say, following up on the last one with Michael, a couple of traits I think that I see in you that I resonate with in myself is you are somebody who feels so deeply. Like your experience of life, it just is like, it almost like your experience of life is so authentic that it like possesses you, and I think you do a great job at like working with that, engaging with it, but like you really care. Like when something hits you, it hits you entirely, and you're like, you'll go to war for somebody, or you'll like, like lift somebody up, or like you actually like deeply, deeply care at the heart of your being. It really matters to you, and people really matter to you. And I think like adding to that, the one piece I really appreciate is like, it's not just like a kind of like a hasty kind of experience that you do. It's like a very thoughtful and a very like integrous experience. Like in the midst of your caring, it doesn't come out like this crazy ass like reactive kind of thing. It comes out like a very integrous, like loving brother, friend, like deep-hearted human who wants to do good in the world. And I really love that about you.
Thank you. We are sensitive boys, you and me.
We are sensitive boys.
Oh, so sensy.
Sensy.
So sensy.
Sensy boys.
That's another thing that makes me mad is abbreviating shit.
Everything. We need Sensy Boy t-shirts. That's what we need.
Sensy
Sensy boy. That one's kind of funny though. I like it. Sensy.
Oh, I love it. Hey, I've loved this conversation. Let's hit the wrap up. Let's hit the conclusion. Like we started out this conversation talking about anger. We talked about like, what makes us so mad. And like after hitting all these like different stories and social commentary, what would you guys say is some of your wrap up points?
My takeaway is just that anger is super fun. Like this is fun to talk about what we're pissed about. Like the vibrance and the life was palpable in the space. And so that was just, it felt cool to experience that in real time, to not just talk about anger, but to be like, okay, we're going to talk about anger, and then we're just going to go into the active expression of it in a healthy way. And to feel what that did, I felt like it brought us into awareness of what we have in common, what we could connect on. It brought us in touch with what we value, and it brought a lot of vibrance and life and vitality into the conversation that I really enjoyed. It's a lot of fun.
I'd say, seeing that all of us are sort of focused on this idea that like authenticity is really, really key to not making us angry. Like, just be real. If you were just more real, like, it would be better. It kind of like pushes me, like it kind of says to me like, okay, but you really have to own that too. Like be real yourself. And so I'm kind of walking away with that, like a self-challenge, like just a check-in, like, am I being real in all the spaces that I need to be real in? And how can I do it better? Like, how can I be more, how can I, really represent those parts of me that want to be represented?
Love that.
See what I said, Emily? Like, what a good-hearted human. Like, he didn't give commentary about like something out there. He was like, I think I'm just gonna do a check-in and like be more deeply authentic.
I love that. It inspired me. I was like, shit, me too. I'm gonna do that too. Damn.
I was like, wow, yeah, he's so much better human than we are. Like, it's amazing.
That was so good.
I'm
inspired.
I feel it. I agree. I think what comes up inside of me after experiencing this conversation with you guys is how beautiful it is to be able to be in a safe space. No, for real. To be in a safe space for anger to come out and to be expressed, like as vitality, as life force energy, and even to be called out in it, or to like challenge, and like the beauty of challenge, and how challenge like oftentimes causes people to grow closer together, because I am the quote master, like I will say a couple quotes that kind of come to mind as we wrap up the conversation. And like one is like kind of one of those traditional like Buddhist quotes or Dalai Lama or something like that, where it's like, if you want to end war in the world, first end the war inside of you. And I think previously there have been scenes in our life where I was, where I would have interpreted that as like, hey, shut down any sort of like conflict inside of you, just like shut it down. But I think that after this conversation, the way I see it now is like, can we befriend everything inside of us and not actually separate from it or partition it off or be an enemy or resist it? But like, if we can become friends with everything, even things that are difficult inside of us, like the dark sides of us or the painful sides or the angry sides of us, like that is the way that war ends within us. And that is obviously like, be the change you want to see in the world kind of thing. Like that is how war gets ended externally as well. And I think like the last comment or quote that I'll have, it's another quote, which is actually super important to me in my life. And it's by a Franciscan priest, Richard Rohr. And he says, because I was in a season where I critiqued 5, 7, 8, 10 years ago, I was deconstructing all of my way I saw the world and myself and whatever. And I was a critic. I was a critique because I felt a lot of pain. And I heard him say one time, he goes, the greatest critique of the old is the practice of the new. Like the greatest critique of the old is not just a verbal critique of the old. And sometimes the old needs to be critiqued verbally, but like the greatest critique of the old is the practice of the new. Mm-hmm. And that's like deeply inspiring to me. Like, I can critique the old, whatever the old is that is like dying. And I don't need by living something more beautiful. And that's what I want to do. I want to live something more beautiful.
Amazing.
Love it.
Michael Romero, what a pleasure to have you on the podcast with us.
You guys are the pleasure. You guys are the pleasure.
You guys are the Chick-fil-A. Yes, my pleasure. My pleasure. I love this conversation with you guys. Thank you so much for helping us dream up this podcast and for being such a creative genius and for joining us in, what makes me so mad.
This doesn't make me mad. The show didn't make me mad, so that's good. That's good.
Till next time, we'll have to have you back on.
Would love to. Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Love and light.
See y'all next time.
Love and light.
Love and light. We out.
We out. Hey, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you for spending some time with us.
If you want to find out more about what's happening with Soul Games, find us on Instagram at The Soul Games or go to thesoulgames.com.
Would love your help in rating and reviewing the podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to stay tuned to all future episodes.
Hey, and if you're loving these episodes and they make your life a little more beautiful, please consider signing up for the paid subscription of Soul Games, the podcast, or even donating through listener support.
Yeah, we'd love your support. All monthly subscribers will get access to bonus content, previous episodes, and be the first to know about exclusive upcoming opportunities to join in on the Soul Games community.
Yeah, we're really excited about the Soul Games community, where you'll have a chance to connect with myself, Emily, and others who are on a similar journey of exploring new ways to enjoy the game of life with a touch more soul.
Well, we appreciate you all so much, and as always, it's a pleasure to be with you.
We are your hosts, Brady Toops.
And Emily Capshaw.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks. Love you. Bye.
Soul Games, the podcast, is a production of Soul Games Media.